Welcome to the video series on the Vermont Green Streets Guide, a resource for planning and building green infrastructure within our communities. In this video, you will hear Richard Amore lead you through Section 3, Planning for Green Streets and Parking Lots.
Section 3 discusses planning for green streets. Green streets offer opportunities for communities to address water quality goals while creating public spaces that deliver social and economic value, as well as protecting the environment and improving water quality. To successfully launch a Green Streets initiative, communities must follow a thoughtful planning process that engages the community in examining their local conditions, identifying and setting goals, and developing future opportunities and projects for green streets in their community. From the beginning, communities should craft a clear vision around why green streets are important. The visioning process should address the three components of green streets. First, it must provide transportation options to walk and bike and take the bus. Second, it should create vibrant streets through placemaking. And finally, they should contribute to a sustainable environment by improving water quality in our downtowns and villages. Communities will vary in their vision and goal setting depending on local capacity and leadership, community priorities, and available resources and funding. One way to inspire the community is to share local case studies from other towns that show the multiple benefits of green streets. From the beginning, you need to involve the community, including local, regional, and state partners, as well as local business leaders. A local Green Streets initiative should be a community-driven process that engages the public and requires the involvement of key stakeholders to identify goals and future opportunities for Green Street projects. Including a diverse array of stakeholders from the beginning will help generate critical buy-in and create the necessary support for the Green Street project. Potential stakeholders to consider including are, of course, the community at large. Local residents often bear the cost of infrastructure improvements and long-term maintenance and can help support the project over the long term. The Town Public Works Department and the Vermont Agency of Transportation district staff will also know whether they have the capacity, the skills, and budget to maintain changes within the travel lanes, sidewalks, and public parking areas. And anything that is being proposed in the public right-of-way must include the Public Works Department or Town Highway Departments. And if the project involves work in a state highway, then the VTrans district staff should be contacted and be involved in early coordination of the project. Another stakeholder group to consider is the local business community, the Chamber of Commerce, and individual property owners. They need to be involved to allow opportunities for input and to address concerns that would conflict with a Green Street project. Another group would be the public safety, the fire, police, and emergency services. Any changes in the width of travel lanes or medians may require changes in practices for emergency service providers, as well as adjacent landowners. Projects in the public right-of-way will affect neighboring land, and their concerns need to be addressed before the design of a project. Some local boards to consider including is, of course, the Town Select Board and the Planning Commission and other town staff. Some other boards may be involved as well, from the Conservation Commission to the Natural Resources Board and tree committees. The town-appointed tree warden can also provide valuable information on the suitability and maintenance of green infrastructure practices that involve trees. State and regional planners and state agency staff should be involved as well. Any proposal or plan that might have an environmental impact or proposed on or be adjacent to a state-owned property or state highway must involve state officials. This may include a project requiring state stormwater permit or other state review. Staff at the Agency of Natural Resources can offer valuable input and information about stormwater management, wildlife habitat, tree selection, and invasive species. And at the regional level, the Regional Planning Commission staff can provide input and technical assistance regarding water quality, the applicable regulations, or other financial resources. Reviewing and consulting the municipal plan and local capital budget can give you a sense of the goals, priorities, and future investments in the community. A careful analysis of local policies, plans, and capital budgets can provide meaningful insight into a community's priorities and future investments. Towns often identify future streetscape and green space improvements as a goal in the town plan, and even during future municipal plan updates, towns could also identify future opportunities to include goals that support the vision of green streets. Communities also use regulations to implement green infrastructure investments through zoning, subdivision regulations, and in low-impact development management standards. Vermont's Green Infrastructure Toolkit offers model language. Some communities may have a downtown, village, or neighborhood master plan, which can offer a more detailed, community-driven vision of the built environment, including its streets. Frequently, these plans are very illustrative in their nature and offer detailed green street strategies for improving the public and private realm. Master plans are action-oriented and lay out a strategic implementation plan for both short-term and long-term public and private investments, including green infrastructure in the downtown. Vermont's 11 regional planning commissions develop regional plans that include an analysis of the regional transportation system, future regional land uses, infrastructure, and community facilities. Regional plans may have specific information regarding transportation improvement projects or areas in need of specific stormwater-related improvements. Additionally, many regional plans include policies supportive of complete streets concepts that are relevant to green streets implementation. Examine these plans for indicators of areas with significant water quality and quantity problems or for any basin-wide planning initiatives. Regional Planning Commission staff are a valuable resource that are able to provide data, mapping, and guidance with regard to regional transportation infrastructure, flood resiliency, and water quality protection. Towns engage in various planning efforts focused on assessing and protecting water resources. The Vermont Department of Environmental Conservation, DEC, develops the River Corridor Plans and the Tactical Basin Plans. River Corridor Plans focus on the current conditions in the streams and rivers and provide goals for preservation, protection, and restoration, while the Tactical Basin Plans guide all work in the watershed, helping identify priority projects including river corridor plans, stormwater master plans, backroad inventories, green infrastructure improvements, and agricultural environmental assessments. Some towns may have stormwater master plans, which even provide a more detailed analysis regarding areas of concern, optimal locations for stormwater management, providing priority projects based on cost and pollutant reduction, offering future recommendations, and often even include schematic designs on local green stormwater projects. Communities may have transportation studies or bicycle and pedestrian scoping studies that offer improvements to improve the walk and bicycle options in their community. If a municipality intends on using state and federal transportation funds to implement a project, it is highly recommended they undertake a scoping study to explore alternatives and develop implementation recommendations. Scoping studies can be funded through the VTrans Bicycle and Pedestrian Program. One of the key principles of green streets is to understand the local context and surroundings. Recognizing that there is no one-size-fits-all approach for green street projects, the rural to urban transect can help guide what type of green street investment is appropriate for what area of town. Identifying what projects are appropriate in each context is important to consider and can help inform the project type and implementation. The function of a street should be considered when evaluating its green street opportunities. What type of street is it? While adding vegetated swells or curb extensions to a neighborhood street may be appropriate for traffic calming, reducing travel lanes and providing landscape medians might well be suited better on an arterial road. What is the street's jurisdiction? Major routes through downtowns or village centers are often shifted to local control, called Class 1 highways, which offers the municipality more design and maintenance flexibility. If the state owns and maintains the highway, early and frequent coordination with VTrans and the local district staff is imperative. What is the role of the street in the transportation system? Is there heavy through traffic or it is a low volume side street? Is it a main street or a major truck route? What are the existing bicycle and pedestrian patterns and infrastructure? The level of traffic congestion is also necessary to understand, as there may be opportunities to reduce or change the number of lanes to better suit current travel patterns, freeing up paved areas in the process for Green Street improvements. What are the road's needs to maintain public safety? Depending on the type of street, maintenance needs will vary. If the street is a main arterial for emergency services, it's expected to be plowed quickly during winter storm events, and this may require larger equipment that could conflict with Green Street elements. Towns need to understand their local capacity to maintain green streets over the long term. A green street project is like any other infrastructure project and will need maintenance, monitoring, and eventual replacement. What is the local capacity of the town's departments to maintain these investments? Who is responsible for the maintenance? Is additional expertise or even equipment needed to maintain the Green Street investment? Local knowledge and maintenance expertise involved early in the planning process are essential to the success of a Green Street project. There are plenty of opportunities for introducing green streets along Vermont's roadways. The key is to have the vision to identify these opportunities in both retrofit conditions and new development opportunities. One of the greatest ways in implementing Green Street project is to look at the current streetscape environment, identifying opportunities that could benefit from green stormwater management best practices. Many streets are wider than necessary, given their current and even forecasted travel demand. Consider narrowing travel lanes down to the Vermont state standards width of 10 or 11 feet for downtown and village streets. Reducing street width reduces impervious surface areas and infrastructure costs, and slows down traffic, creating safer streets and promotes walkability. The extra space provides room for decentralized green infrastructure to absorb stormwater during rain events and provide landscaping in our downtowns and villages. For smaller residential streets, consider retrofitting underutilized landscape buffer zones for rain gardens or other bioretention areas for stormwater management. Are there existing zones marked no parking that can be created into landscape areas designed to capture stormwater in your community? Or can the size and number of on-street parking spaces be reduced in favor of increased landscape area along a street? Angle parking takes up more space than parallel parking. Towns can explore ways to redesign on-street angled parking to on-street parallel parking to increase safety and create more space for wider sidewalks for outdoor cafes, providing landscaping and street trees, and manage stormwater better. Providing additional landscaping, street trees, and wider sidewalks adds vitality to the downtown and village, and it can enhance the visitor experience and improve the overall quality of life and livability of the downtown or village center. There are an estimated 800 million parking spaces in the United States. Take a moment to imagine. That's almost 2.5 parking spaces for every person in the U.S. Many of these spots exist in large, paved parking lots with lots of impervious cover. A sea of asphalt. Green infrastructure can be incorporated into parking lots to moderate summer temperatures, improve safety, enhance aesthetics, and provide valuable stormwater management. Parking lots can be retrofitted with some simple adjustments. For new development, consider removing or adjusting parking minimums in your zoning bylaws. This will reduce the size and number of parking spaces in large parking lots, freeing up more space for green infrastructure. An example of how changing your town bylaws can support green infrastructure. This typical site plan and cross-section illustrate a conventional parking lot condition with 18-foot long parking spaces. Changing your town bylaws to a 15-foot parking stall length and a 22-foot driving aisle can provide more areas for green stormwater infrastructure and new development. Another local example shows oversized parking stalls and really little green space, including larger areas of impervious surfaces, and truly are an inefficient use of space in capturing stormwater. Through incentivizing or requiring the use of pervious parking surfaces, towns can specify that parking lots offer medians filled with trees and green space to capture stormwater. Green streets can be incrementally applied in our communities. There are multiple shades of green. The degree to which a project takes the green streets approach can vary based on goals, available resources, the local capacity, and space constraints. We can think of green streets as having various levels ranging from the simplest Level 1 designs to the most complex Level 5. The most sophisticated green streets designs intertwine stormwater management with livability, complete streets, and placemaking. New and redevelopment projects offer opportunities to achieve a higher level of green street best practices. Other projects, especially retrofits, might only be able to achieve minimal green design due to site constraints or existing policy or infrastructure constraints. In Level 1, it's simply an increase in the amount of landscaping along a street, and it reduces the area of impervious surfaces to capture stormwater. In Level 2, it features a street or parking lot with substantial landscape areas and a system of broad tree canopy to capture rainfall. There may be no dedicated stormwater treatment measures, but on days with minimal rainfall, most stormwater may be captured within the tree canopy, soil, and landscaping. In Level 3, it represents the most common perception of a green street or green parking lot, where some stormwater treatment measures actively capture and manage surface runoff at its source. In Level 4, it includes the best stormwater management practices of Level 1, 2, and 3, while also providing a direct emphasis on alternative modes of transportation, such as walking, biking, or transit. And finally, in Level 5, the most efficient and effective level of green street design. It is the most challenging to achieve, however. This comprehensive approach allows stormwater to be managed entirely within the streetscape. Stormwater from private driveways and buildings can be managed within the public right-of-way, and stormwater from the street is filtered in available landscape spaces on private property. A true mixing of the public and private realm. Finally, just keep it simple. Just as green streets can have multiple shades of green, they can also have multiple levels of complexity. Identifying projects that are simple and low cost to implement are great ways to get started. Too often, very complex green infrastructure projects are planned, and it takes a long time to secure the necessary funding to implement. Simple, low-cost green street projects might include modifying underutilized spaces that already receive stormwater, or conversion of on-street parking spaces with an existing drain inlet into a stormwater curb extension, or the addition of street trees along Main Street, or even adding a lawn strip along a residential neighborhood street. These solutions rely on simple regrading or replanting, minimal hardscape improvements, and little or no alteration of the existing stormwater system. Develop a plan of action, identifying your vision, your goals, and objectives, and understanding how these relate to the local context is essential. Developing your plan of action. However, equally important is identifying the barriers to implementation, which can include physical and environmental constraints, lack of community support, land ownership, funding, and maintenance. Transforming a street into a green street or green parking lot, or getting a community to fully embrace green street principles does not need to be an all or nothing approach, but can include several short, medium, and long-term actions that ultimately move to the redesign of streets and parking lots that improve water quality, offer transportation choices, and creates a sense of place. Small improvements can make big change possible.
Thank you for watching. Next, you will hear Sophie Sauvé lead you through Section 4, Green Street Design Principles.